Me okay? You can jump on and say hello, or you can chat in the chat box and let me know if you can hear me okay. All right. I count about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 people. Sherry, does that sound about right? 15 people, or do you want me to wait a little bit longer? Okay, no problem. I'll wait just a few more minutes. Thank you. Hey, Jake, I wasn't talking quite yet. Can you hear me now? Oh, good. Nope, no worries. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes. Sherry said there's a couple more people she thinks should probably be here, and then we'll get going. Okay, we'll get started. Good morning. Thank you guys for coming. I'm going to take a quick screenshot of the attendees box so that I can email it to you, Sherry, when we're done. Can you guys hear me okay? There shouldn't be anything in the background that's very loud, but okay, good. I shut off my dryer. Otherwise, I think it would have been a little loud. Awesome. All right, so this morning we are going to talk about the Lesson Mastery Report and how it is used with, in particular with the MyPath stuff, but keep in mind this report can be done with any course that has a quiz in it. So basically, almost any course that we have. So Sherry, before we get started, I wanted to ask you, when I go into your guys's school, what school do you think would be for me to do some of the practice and lesson reports on? Is there one in particular? I had it in the RTI school for reading, but I wasn't sure if that's the one you think would be the best. Is there a different one you think might be better? Okay. This one here with the 9 students. Aha. Okay. The one with 246. Correct? This one here with 246? Okay. Perfect. The more students, the better, just because it'll show better data. I'm hoping that my groups stayed here. One thing I do want to point out, this report can be run. Okay, good. I have a test group. Oh, let me check and see if it's got any kiddos in it. Nope. So this report can be run with, does anybody need me to go over again how to make groups, or are you all pretty familiar with making groups? Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to make one for myself really fast because I made one in the other school. So I'm just going to make a test group. Otherwise, what I need to show up on the Lesson Mastery Report won't show up there. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, so to find the Lesson Mastery Report, it's a report, so hover over Reports and come down to Lesson Mastery. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Amanda. I'm an implementation coach with Edgenuity. I am your school's dedicated implementation coach. I got to visit with Sherry and some other ladies the other day, and it was so nice, and I love the building that the school's in, and I felt very privileged to be there. And so hopefully someday maybe we'll get to meet if I ever get to visit again. So this is the lesson report. The first thing I like to point out about this page, at the top right corner here is a blue question mark. These blue question marks show up on a couple different pages. This is one of them, and creating groups is another. But the nice thing about this blue question mark is when you click on it, it opens another tab, and it will give you information only about this page. So it's not as cumbersome as trying to jump into eCommunity and find a bunch of stuff. It directs you only to information about this page. It explains what some of the things are on the page, how the system is defining certain things. So if you need some of that information, that's how you find it. And again, that's the blue question mark up here. You won't see that on every single page, but on this page it is there for sure. So I'll run a report first using all students, and then I'll use one or run one using groups, just to show you the difference. So the basic purpose of this report is to identify students who are struggling in certain standard strands. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to choose a course that we want the report to run through. So I am going to choose notice how all of the courses show up. You can run this for any course, like we said, you can run it for the ACT prep. As long as it has a quiz, you can run it for that. Because we were sort of talking about this when we were looking at MyPath, I don't see anybody in MyPath on here, that's okay. Sherry, do you have a preference of a course you want me to run it with? Or does anybody have a preference? Okay, maybe ACT? Okay. Oops. Hello, Madison.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
That's okay. No big deal. Okay, perfect. All right, so the only suggestions or questions that I saw were maybe ACT. So I'm just gonna pick some of those. If you guys have any other better different suggestions, just let me know, chat it for me. I have the chat box open. So language arts, we're gonna go ahead and do either one of these, English section or reading. I don't see a preference for those. After you choose your course, and I mean, feel free to maybe have two tabs open, one being the webinar, the other being, you know, your actual Edgenuity. Kelly, I don't know, is it maybe because I'm in a different course? Yours should be in here. Kelly, is what you're saying, yours should be on the ACT one? Is it, tell me, Kelly, oh, it's because of the schools. Okay, okay. What I was saying is if you would like to choose your school and, you know, follow along on another tab and sort of do what I do, then please feel free to do that. And because all of the steps are the same. It would just be different, you know, based on what school you have up here, and then that way your courses here would change based on the school that you choose. So follow along if you like, or just watch and then, you know, do it later. So I'm going to choose language arts. I'm going to choose ACT reading, just because that was one suggested. So you choose your courses here. Next, you have to help the system identify what you want it to count as a struggling student, and you have some options here. One is any student who has taken the quiz at least one time and has not yet earned a passing score, or you can define those parameters a little bit more thoroughly. So any student who has taken the quiz maybe 2 or 3 times and has 2 scores under a 70. So it kind of drills a little bit further in. You can leave it at both. Doesn't matter, it'll just gather more students that way. You can sort of decide. So I'm going to go ahead and leave these at both, but these are changeable. Hopefully you don't have students taking quizzes 10 times, but just in case you do, it's there. Same with these, it has 9 or whatever scores underneath, and you can also set the percentage. So let's say you want to see your truly failing students, or maybe you want to see the mastering students. So you don't necessarily only have to search for students who are maybe failing, but you could even run this to determine who in my group and my school and my class are, you know, getting a 90%. I want to really highlight the higher achieving students. Correct, Shauna. So the question was, so the student doesn't have to be qualified under both. It can be either or. Yes, these are checkable. So you have to check at least one, obviously, but you can check one or the other, or you can check both. Does that answer your question? I think if I misunderstood the question, let me know. Okay, they're both checked, is it still either or? Oh, I see what you're saying. So I think that if they're both checked, it's going to look for students who qualify in both areas. I believe if you want it to be either or, you have to uncheck one of them. That's a really good question. Yeah. Okay, then you name your report here. Obviously, you can name it whatever you like. The nice part about this report is you can set all of these parameters one time, run the report, and then when you come back to the lesson mastery page, so I'll just show you. So we set all of these, we named it. You can name it anything that you like, maybe the week or something, and then you run it each week, and you want to see the difference between week 1 and week 2 and week 3, and so you start from week 1 and you label it week 1. And then when you rerun it, maybe you title that one week 2. And so, you know, seeing the progression that way is an option. So I'm going to say week 1, and then I have all students here, and then generate report. Takes a little bit. And here is the report. It automatically saves it for you. I'm going to go back to the page just so you can see how it keeps that report there for you. So when we first came to this page, there was only the create new report. Now we have this report that we just created. Notice I didn't have to push save or anything. It just does it automatically. You can edit it, you can copy it, you can delete it, or if you want to run it again, you can run it again. Again, it takes a little bit. Okay, and so here it is. You can export these to Excel if you like. That's another way to sort of keep track of them if you like. Now, this is a page that has a wealth of information on it. So I want to be sure to show you what each of the tabs mean and then what the different views are. So the first one that it pulls you to is the Lesson Mastery tab, and we are on the course structure view. So what that means is it's going to show you the percent of students struggling in order of how the course is set up. The other option is to view this page by percent struggling. So I clicked on percent struggling here, and it basically reorders the information to where the highest percent struggling is at the top. That way you can see it looks like the rest of the standards are doing fine. It's just this one that students seem to be struggling. It's 1 out of 3, which because there's only 3 students, it's 33%. So let's talk a little bit about the different columns. Yeah, it is pretty useful. So we have the different standards here, which I'll get into in a second because there's a drop down. This is the, let me see. Oh, this is the lesson, this is the standard. Then we have the lesson you can click into, which I'll show you. You have a percent struggling here, and because we're on percent struggling view, it's at the top. This is important to note, the number struggling, because again, this is, you know, it looks like only out of 3 students who, that means 3 students have taken this quiz, so it has 3 students to choose from to see if anybody's struggling. This data can get like it makes a difference, obviously. If it's like 50 students, 1 out of 50 students struggling is going to be a different percentage. So it's helpful to see exactly how many students are in there, because 1 out of 3 isn't as bad as, you know, 30 out of 50, for example. An average quiz score is here, so even though they were identified as struggling, they are still technically passing. It's a 64%. Average quiz attempts is here. Average lesson time, that's pretty useful as well, and it's by seconds, minutes, hours. So you can actually dig into these a little more. If you click on the lesson name, any portion of the page that's blue and highlighted means it's like a hot link, so or you know, hyperlink, so you can click into it, and it will actually take you to the student who it's pulling out. So only 3 students have taken this quiz to be used for who's struggling, and then whenever you see an exclamation mark, they are the student who qualifies as struggling under those parameters that you set from before. So you can see your students here, how many quiz attempts, highest score. Not only that, but you can dig further down into those quiz attempts. So you can see he only has 1 quiz attempt, and just like with the grade book, if you click view, it will take you to that specific student's quiz. So then you can drill down and say, okay, so let's see exactly what this student is struggling with so that you can help to remediate from there. So that, oh, and this is helpful too. The average score, average attempts, and average time. That's for all of the students together. So that's kind of nice to see. You can see the course here, and then distinguishing conclusions from supporting details. That would be the standard and the strand. So all of these can be clicked into, and you can see the students who have taken them. However, because this student, for example, has taken it 3 times, but their highest score was 100, their lowest score was a 40, I can dig into that if I want to and see those scores. When you can see the average scores and the scores attempts. So there's a lot of different information that you can get once you run this report. So that's the lesson mastery view, and that's the percent struggling view. The only thing that's different if you do the course structure view is it will list it in the order of the course. Now, any questions about that before I show you the other tab? I'm going to, while you guys are thinking, I'm going to expand all of these because sometimes, yeah, it seems pretty straightforward, right? So what I would like to show you, but I can't for some reason for this course, is sometimes you'll be able to expand a standard here with the drop down. I just pushed expand standards, all of them. And in here, there will be sort of little sub-strands of the standard, and they will have a box next to it that you can check. And once you check a couple or one of those boxes, there's a blue button, if you will, that shows up. Right, okay. There's a blue button that shows up, and it will say filter this report per standard. So if you wanted to dig down further and only focus on a couple of those standards, it would basically rearrange it for you so that you would only see those standards that you wanted to see. Let's take a look. Oh no, it's okay, no big deal. I'll go back and do a different course so I can show it to you in a second. No worries. Let's take a look at activities and scores because, okay, so it's useful because you can see students, you can see who's struggling, you can drill down into those students' quizzes and take a look at their exact, responses. With the activities and scores view, what this allows you to do is you can go in and see, because if you're here and you're like, well, I don't remember exactly what was taught or what the video was in that activity, and I want to see that before I go and try to teach it or whatever. You can see the objectives here. You can see average time, you can see average score, average attempts, and then the activity button will allow you to, from this page, go to the exact activity. So maybe you can take a look at, I wonder what the student was struggling with. I like that because then you don't have to back all the way out of this and go to like the course structure section of Edgenuity to find what exactly is in here. If it's a quiz or practice test, you can see the item bank here. For some of the videos, it looks like ACT maybe isn't there quite yet. There'll be a CC here, and you can take a look at the transcript instead of watching the video if you want to. So let's back out and let's choose a couple different options. No worries. So I'm just going to come all the way back out, and I'm going to say, that's that one. Let's create a new one. And this time I'm going to use a different course. Maybe I'll choose math this time in case we have any math instructors. Okay, Matt says his history classes have some standards missing as well. I wonder why that is. I wish I had an answer for you, but I honestly do not. Does anybody have a math class that I can, okay, Jake says, secondary math 2, semester 2. Let me look, it's probably down here, huh? Secondary math 2, semester 2, right here? Just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. So here we go. I'm going to choose a group for this one just because I want to show you the difference. Hopefully, Jake, some of these students that I chose are in this class. If you have groups, obviously it would make more sense probably for you to do this with your groups. So if it does not work with my groups, I'll come back and do all students. Jake, do you have a preference of what we can mark here? What do we want to use? What do we want the system to define a struggling student as? Should I use both? You want me to just use one? Pretend you have control. Both is fine. Okay. And the parameters here are okay? Just keep these the same. Okay. Notice here you need to change your standards to fit what you want them to. So obviously we would use Utah, correct? And we would say mathematics, and there's just the one. And notice here that we have a few more choices because this is a class that does hopefully drill down into standards. Stacy, I'm reading your thing now. If I have a group of students from all the different schools in it, will it pull all of the data, or will it just pull for the students in the school I'm currently in? That is a phenomenal question. So your question meaning like if this school up here is a particular school, will it only pull for that school that you're in? Okay. I want to say that it actually depends not on the school that you're in, but the school that is chosen for the student's home school. It won't work for UOSL, meaning like Chanel, you've tried it and it's not working? Is that what you're saying? Oh, why are your courses not listed? So like when you come up here and you try to mess with this part to choose, they're not listed? Nothing's listed there for you to choose from? Oh, hi. Go ahead.
So we have students in 4 different schools, and then we collect them all in UOS All.
Okay.
But the courses are only listed in the 4 separate schools. None of the courses are listed in UOS All, so it's not grabbing them from there.
Do you have the ability to change schools up here?
I've already been into UOS All. I'm one of the math teachers, and
Okay.
the only math courses that show up, I think, are not even actually our courses.
So, what if you change this school up here though, not to USO All? Can you find stuff? Like, will you have to change it to each of the 4 different schools? Probably.
Yes, if I change it to full-time, I can see my students.
Okay.
I can see my full-time students, but I can't see, then I have to switch it, to each of the separate schools.
Okay.
To get to all my students.
Okay, and I think that's probably something on our end that, the students I think can only be housed in one home school, and that's where it's going to pull it from. So it sounds like that's a good step, and I'm glad that you brought that up because it sounds like since the as all is a collection, you will have to change these schools up here to the home schools of the students, which I can ask Eric if that's something that we can mend on our back end, but I don't know if it is. But I will certainly ask him. Okay, so let me write that down so I don't forget to say that. Ask Eric if can pretty sure it's not how you spell that. Consolidate.
The other question would be, would all of our courses have to be listed also in UOS All? Because none of them are.
Okay. Okay. In my follow-up, I will get the answer to that question, and I will, if he knows it, and then I'll put the answer in our follow-up. Stacy says, I think students would have to be assigned the course, and it also should mess things up. Yeah, probably organization-wise, Stacy, I think you're right. I think it would probably mess it up. So what he will probably end up telling me is in order to run this report correctly on your end, you may have to go ahead and use the 4 different homeschools up here, switch back and forth between them, but I will ask him if there's something we can do. I'm glad that you guys brought that up, because I think you're one of the only schools that has kind of something like that, and I think that's something that we could definitely address and see if we have a fix for. Okay, so let's go a little bit further into this math one. As you can see, there's a little difference down here in what we can see. So we have the ability to choose all of these different standards if we want to, or you can expand it out and choose which ones you want to focus. It goes even further. Look, it goes really far down into. So if you say, for example, have a state exam that shows a majority of students are struggling in a certain strand, and it's after first semester, and you want to check to see if you still have a lot of students struggling in that one particular strand or standard, you can, if it's a course that is broken down by standards, break it down very, very far to get a idea if students are struggling in that one. So you can be very precise with the things that you choose to run this report on, or it can be very general. Torkel says, in the meantime, we can run reports individually and export, then consolidate the data in Excel. Yes. Luckily, all of this is exportable. I'm not sure if that's a word, but I just made it a word. And you can consolidate it into, like you said, consolidate that data in the Excel. So, Jake, do you want me to choose a specific strand or standard or anything, or just go ahead and run it for all of them? Do you have a preference? I think it's pretty cool that it goes so far down and that you can really highlight them if you want to. Okay, so you said geometry. So I'm going to uncheck them all. I'm going to check geometry. And you want me to dig, or you want just to keep geometry? Could be pretty fun. Okay. I will just keep geometry then. We're just going to keep geometry. And notice the title. So if I were Jake, I might, and I know that I'm, for this one, just looking at geometry, I might keep all of this, but then maybe tag geometry at the end so that I know that it's focusing just on this one. And remember, I have a group chosen up here, so if nothing shows up, that will probably be why, and I'll come back and fix it. So let's just do generate report. Let's see how good I was. I just picked the first 5 people in that list that I had, so we'll see if any of them are in my Nope. So the reason nobody is showing up is because I have the group chosen. So I'm going to go back one and I will fix, let's see, we're going to do, I'm going to choose this one, and instead of doing all those buttons again, I'm going to push edit, and it should pull up all this stuff that we have done already. And we're going to say all students instead. It's thinking. Still, there it goes. See? So that's kind of a good thing to show you. So I hit the back button, but it came to a page where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to pick all of that again. So I just went to reports and lesson mastery, and it was one of the two that saved. I chose the one that we had done, and instead of saying run report, I hit edit. So now I'm going to go ahead and run for all students. All of this stuff is the same. We have geometry. I believe it's still the same title. Let's make sure. Yes. So we will say generate report. So instead of creating a new one and having a bunch on that page, I just edited one to be what I wanted it to actually be. And it's spinning. Okay, so here we go. So here is a little bit more. So see, we have a larger number of students here. 21, 18, 17. We can see average quiz scores. We can see average attempts, average time in lesson. This is the course structure view. So this is listing these by how they are listed in the course. If I go to percent struggling view, it will list the highest ones at the top. It's spinning, sorry. And 100% looks really scary, but again, if you look at the percent struggling, or the number struggling, it's 2 out of 2. So yes, 2 out of 2 students are in there and they're struggling. That's a very different number than, 25 out of 25. So this is listing it by percentage. So when we start to dig down, let me see, are this column is sortable as well. So whenever I can click on this and I can say, okay, I don't really want to see by percent struggling, I want to see number of struggling. Jake says, does this only include active students or all archived courses? I believe it's only active students. Shall we look into some of these students and see? Let's make sure. So why are there no standards? Okay, so here's one. So this one did not let me, it let me expand it, but there's nothing here. So I expanded this one though, and here we have the other separated standards. It's a little deeper. So if I wanted to, I could say, okay, I really only want to see, I'm not really sure what a dilation is. A dilation takes a line not passing through the center. Whoa. So I'm just going to pick that one, and I'm going to say filter report by selected. And it will pull up just the information for those. And you can see 7 out of 21, 33%, and you can see all the rest of the info here, average score, average quiz attempt, and we have, if I click into it, remember, this is where it's going to show me the exact students. So, Jake, you tell me, are there any students on here that are archived, or are these all current students that you can tell? Okay, 2 are in fact archived. Can you tell me who they are? I want to click on their drop down, or tell me one of them. Okay. Oh yeah, that was a long time ago. Interesting. So that answers our question. It pulls from even archived courses. So it looks like anybody who's ever taken the quiz this quiz in this course in the school that we chose will come up here, show up here. Do you feel like that's beneficial or not beneficial? Like it might, I'm trying to think of if there's a way, I don't know of a way to only limit it to active, so then you would only see kids that are, actually in there taking the course. Yes, if someone's using the same course for a few years, it could produce a lot of data. It is, let's see, it is broken down by course though. So like it would only show students who have been put in that course. So like it looked like your guys' courses were 2015-16, like they were labeled that way. But it seems like anybody put in there does show up on this list. Yes, indeed. Yes, I'm glad that I actually, like I said, I wasn't really 100% on that. So it does look like it will be from, right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Shauna says it must have only been students from last semester. So likely it's not, from last year because, year as in school year, because those kids probably wouldn't be in 2015, 2016 classes. So, but it is anybody who's been in there this current year, including last semester. I don't think there's a way to change that I know of, but it could be a good, feature request, like can I just use active students or not active students? So that is that. We dug deeper down, and let's look at the activities and scores. I want to show you the CC function that wasn't there for the ACT one. Here. So the videos, if you do not want to watch them, you can just click on the CC, and this is a relatively new feature where you just sort of can read through it, and you don't have to actually, watch the video if you don't want to. Shauna says, plus if you sort in Excel, you could possibly sort by date, attempt, yes, and then delete those students. Yep, Kelly says, is there any way to sort or filter using another date? Does it show you a date somewhere? Yes. If we look in the lesson mastery view, I believe there's a date column. Is it sortable though? We have to check. Let's look. Okay, not in this one, and I have it in course structure. Let's look in percent struggling. That's a really good question. Right. I do not see a date. Right, Kelly, that makes sense. Data to look at current students. Hold on, so I think the only place that a date shows up, nope, it's not there either. I know there was a date one. Okay, Stacy says there's not dates in the exported view either. Interesting. That would definitely be helpful on this report, and if we were able to sort it. But I'm wondering where they would put it. And that's probably the problem. I'm just thinking on the back end. It's one, okay, Shauna says if I went down one more level. So dig into the students themselves. Is that what you mean by level? Yeah. Oh, this level, right? The particular student themselves, yes. So, but this page itself is not exportable. I think because when we did the parameters, we said at least one of the quizzes that she took was below a certain number. So I think it was the second checkbox. It said students who've taken the quiz at least 3 times, and at least one of them was below a certain, and we set that percentage, yeah. So, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because just by first glance, it looks, this is, it's an exclamation, it's red, it's like scary, oh my gosh, what's going on with the student? But then if you look, her highest score was 100, so she's okay now, but at one time, first attempt was a 0, and then 50, and then 100%. So eventually the student got it, but because of the way we set up the parameters, the system said, oh, this is one of the students you wanted to be identified. So that's a good thing to bring up, though, because you want to be really careful with those parameters that you set, because I guess you really have to think about, well, what do I want to actually show up on this report? Do I want to see, anybody who's ever failed quiz, or do I just want to see, kiddos that are just failing the quiz right now? Right, exactly, Jake. So I would probably just play around with those parameters and go back in and edit the report a few times until it showed exactly what I wanted to see. Because, you could see a lot of different things depending on those parameters that you do set in the very beginning. Are there any other questions? Let's see, did you say we could see just the students who passed? I think so. Let's take a look. Let's do another one. Let's go to Lesson Mastery. And let's talk about how we would set up these two parameters to only see kiddos who just passed. So we would uncheck this one for sure, because this is going to highlight any student who's not yet earned a passing grade. So like if you didn't want kiddos to show up who have passed it, like that one who got 100, you would probably just click this one. Any student who's taken the quiz at least one time and has not yet passed it. So that's that one. But for what Chanel's asking, she said we could see just students who have passed. I would not click this one, and I would say, what do you guys think? How would we set this up? Any student who's taken the quiz, like it depends. Do you want to see a student who's taken the quiz only once and passed it right away? That's going to be a different group of students. If I say a student who's taken the quiz 3 times and has at least 2 scores, and then, oh, it says under. Sean, I'm reading your thing now. It would be cool if the data criteria could be added to the quiz attempt parameter. Meaning, oh, by date. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. If a date. Yeah, I was looking for over. Yes. So let's think about this. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like if this another checkbox could say over, like you want to see all your students who've taken it once and right away got over 100. So because if we do this, it's actually going to highlight way too many, because then you have your 80s and stuff like that. I see what you're saying. No, that you're right. It needs to say over. I agree. I'm going to add that to my list, because that would be extremely helpful. Because how cool would it be for you to run this report and get that list, and then, that's who you could call, or however it is that you guys, do your rewards for students. That'd be a nice way to see that. Teacher request. I'm going to put this down. And then also one where we could do something with the date, because that would be extremely helpful if that pulled, even if it was just to pull into an Excel spreadsheet. that would be helpful for sure. Great questions. I can tell it's always so obvious when I do these with students who are students with a group of teachers who are very familiar with our system versus ones who are not, because you guys have such amazing questions and feature requests as well. Are there any other questions or kind of, feature requests like, man, I wish that this report could do this? Because I know this is something that we're really working hard on our end in changing and modifying, and the more kind of suggestions we have, the better, because then that's what the people who made it use to kind of change it up if needed. Any other questions or comments or anything? Sherry, you feel like I missed anything? Is there anything that you were thinking I was going to show that maybe I haven't yet? Okay. If there are no other questions, that was the main parts of what we wanted to show today. Just really drill down into the lesson mastery report. So the last thing that I will need, though, is I'm about to send a link into the chat box. It's for our survey. If you guys could pretty please take that survey for me super fast. I think it takes like 2 minutes. You'll recognize it if you've ever had a training before. It's the one about the training itself and how we did. And this is not a training that we like have on the books typically, and so any feedback that you have for it would be really helpful, because then we would know, if we were to make this like a formal training or something later, what we could do to make it better for you. Oh, hold on. Let me see. There's an error. I wonder if, let's try it this way. Okay, let me copy it this way. Maybe it came in here. Yes. Okay, so it looks like I had a strange little arrow there. Sorry about that. Thank you, Bethany. Let me know if it works this time, guys. It's actually blue this time as opposed to not blue like it was before, so I think we'll be okay. I'll be here for a little bit longer if you want to, for just a few more questions, or if you're done with the survey, and unless Sherry has anything else. Sherry, did you need to say anything? You want to jump on and say anything, or if they're done with the survey, are they good to go? Perfect. Okay. No, thank you guys very much. This was fun. No problem. I'll send out a follow-up here pretty soon, Sherry, with maybe some answers to your guys' questions, and I'll definitely feature request those items that you guys said, so that the powers that be can, oh, go ahead, Kelly. So the powers that be can fix some stuff.
Okay, so my question is about my ACT class. It looks a lot like Lisa's, and I just want to verify. I didn't want to ask this earlier because it's not pertinent to everyone, but because ACT does not have specific standards tied to it, it's more like one of those virtual tutorial, training classes.
Correct.
And so its purpose is just to review. If that's the case, then the functionality or just the way that I can use the lesson mastery is a little bit different, right? It's not going to drill down into specific items underneath the standard, but it will tell me for each
Quiz.
lesson or quiz
Right.
who mastered it and who didn't, right?
Correct.
And then I can kind of go from there and drill down and get information.
Yeah.
My one concern, is because this course in the future, we'll get a new group of kids every semester who are taking it. So if there's not a way to be able to identify, that current group of students
separated into semesters.
Yes. Then that'll be really hard to be able to use the data because you would spend most of your time just trying to figure out, oh yeah, that student was from last year, just because there's so many kids in the class at one time.
So I think the only remedy for that I can think of is to actually create different courses each semester. So then, does that make sense? So say just take this year. So we have the first semester kids. So we can title the course, just the naming function. I saw probably semester or year, and then semester 1, and then your name, and that would be those kids. And then the next semester, it would have to be year, and then semester 2, and then your name, and put those kids in that one instead of. Does that make sense? Do you think that would probably work since we choose the course and then we would pick a different course and then it wouldn't show the kids in the first one, it would show only the kids in the second one? Or is that like too much course changing for you guys?
It's a potential solution. It just depends. I think that Sherry and them would probably like to get to the point where we're not uploading classes, mid-November each year and then stalling on doing enrollments because teachers are changing their class again. I'm sure we'd love to get to the point where the classes that year are done in August and then we're done. But Chanel was asking if I created some type of group, and honestly the group is just going to be adding every single kid for that semester, to it. If I sorted it by a group, then that would ensure that I'm just getting that semester's kids. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That is what that function is for. And I failed, unfortunately, to show you that because I had chosen the wrong students for the course that we picked. But yes, on your side, you can create a group true to the students you need to see, and then it will only pull those students. That's exactly right.
That's the easiest solution. So what I'll do is just each semester, when I get my new class list finalized, I'll just make my own group. Sound like I'm making my pasta here. So I'll make my own group and then watch and see what happens. Okay?
Okay.
That'll work. And at least that'll let me be able to see, as far as data, what, when I'm going to create the class, if over a year and a half's time I see that only 2 out of 200 kids don't pass capitalization on the first or second go-round, then I need to just stop putting that in the class, because the kids get it. They don't need that. And then we'll just focus the course on the topics that consistently have lower mastery scores, because those are the topics that students still aren't getting. So
yeah, that's a really good idea. I hadn't really thought about using it that way, but I love the idea of taking a look at the report and seeing which ones the kids are getting, and then actually that report helping you to remove the content that they don't really need. That's a really good idea. And thank you, Chanel, for talking about the groups. For some reason, that totally slipped my mind that we have that function. Probably because mine didn't work, but I think that would definitely work the best, Chanel, and that's a really good use for it, Kelly. Thank you for that.
Perfect. Okay, Chanel and Amanda, thank y'all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys have a great week.
Are
there any other questions, or I think we're free to go? I think a lot of people have left. I think I got to put Madison on the list of people who came. I don't have that one yet. I think everybody's jumping out. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'm going to head out as well unless I see anything pop up for questions. No problem, Jake. Thank you.